Death. Not the concept, not the metaphor. The actual biological event happening inside a human body, organ by organ, minute by minute. Most people spend their entire lives pretending this process doesn't exist. Today you're going to learn exactly what happens when it does. Welcome to Every Way the Body Shuts Down, explained in 10 minutes. The heart. The heart stops. That's the sentence everyone knows. What nobody tells you is what comes before it. In the final minutes before cardiac arrest, the heart doesn't just quit, it panics. It fires erratic electrical signals in a last desperate attempt to keep rhythm. This is called ventricular fibrillation. The chambers stop pumping and start quivering, like a fist trying to open and close too fast. No blood moves. The engine is still running. The wheels have stopped. The heart has been beating since you were a 4-week-old embryo. It beats roughly 100,000 times a day. Over a lifetime, that's around 3 billion beats without a single day off, a single vacation, a single moment of rest. No other muscle in the body does this. None of them are asked to. Here's what nobody mentions. The heart can actually restart itself. For a few minutes after clinical death, if enough oxygen remains in the tissue, the sinoatrial node, the heart's internal pacemaker, can attempt spontaneous electrical recovery. The body tries to undie. Sometimes it works. Most of the time, it doesn't. But it tries. 4 to 6 minutes without a heartbeat and the brain begins to die. After 10 minutes, the damage is typically irreversible. The heart didn't just stop. It took everything else down with it. The brain. The brain is the most expensive organ in the body to run. It consumes 20% of your total oxygen supply despite being only 2% of your body weight. It is, metabolically speaking, a parasite living inside your skull. And the moment oxygen stops arriving, it begins to self-destruct. Within 15 seconds of cardiac arrest, you lose consciousness. Not slowly, immediately. The lights go out before you can reach for the switch. Within 1 minute, the brain's electrical activity flatlines. Dying neurons flood their neighbors with toxic levels of glutamate, triggering a chain reaction of death. The brain evolved over millions of years to solve problems, build civilizations, write symphonies, and fall in love. It has a backup plan for almost everything. It does not have a backup plan for no oxygen. Here's the part nobody tells you. For up to 30 seconds after clinical death, brain activity doesn't flatline, it surges. Researchers at the University of Michigan recorded a massive spike in gamma wave activity in dying patients. Highly organized, hyperactive brain states, more coherent than normal waking consciousness. Whatever you see at the moment of death, your brain is not shutting down quietly. It is burning as brightly as it ever has. Then it goes out. The lungs. The lungs don't usually go first. That's the detail that surprises people. In most deaths, the lungs are still technically functional long after the heart and brain have failed. They are the last to know. Breathing is so automatic that most people forget it's happening. The diaphragm contracts. The lungs expand. Oxygen crosses the alveolar membrane into the bloodstream in 1/4 of a second. You do this 12 to 20 times per minute, every minute, without ever deciding to. Your breathing has been happening since before you were born. In the womb, fetuses practice breathing movements at 11 weeks. The lungs have been rehearsing longer than you've been alive. When the brain dies, the signal to breathe stops. The diaphragm relaxes for the last time. What follows is called agonal breathing, irregular gasping, sometimes hours long. It sounds like the body is fighting. It is not fighting. The brainstem is misfiring. Nobody is home anymore. The house is just settling. Here's what nobody mentions. After the last breath, the lungs don't empty. They retain a residual volume of air, about 1.2 liters, that never fully leaves. Your lungs at the moment of death still hold the last air you ever breathed, a small, useless archive of your final atmosphere. The liver. The liver is the body's most underrated organ. The heart gets poems. The brain gets philosophy. The liver gets nothing. Despite doing over 500 distinct chemical functions simultaneously, filtering toxins, producing bile, synthesizing proteins, regulating blood sugar, metabolizing every drug you've ever taken. It is a biochemical factory running 3 shifts with no management and no complaints. The liver is also, famously, the one organ that can fully regenerate. Remove 60% of it and it grows back. Ancient Greeks knew this. They told the story of Prometheus, chained to a rock, while an eagle ate his liver every day, only to have it regrow each night. They didn't know the biology. They knew the organ. When circulation stops, the liver begins to die within minutes. But liver cells, hepatocytes, are remarkably resilient compared to neurons. Some can still be harvested for transplant 30 minutes after death under the right conditions. Here's the part nobody tells you. The liver keeps producing enzymes after death. In the hours and days following death, the liver continues releasing digestive enzymes into the surrounding tissue. It doesn't know it's over. It keeps trying to process what no longer exists. Forensic scientists use the liver's post-mortem enzyme activity to estimate time of death. Even dead is still doing its job. 500 functions. Not one of them is stopping gracefully. The skin. Skin is the largest organ in the body, and the first one most people forget is an organ. It weighs between 3 and 5 kilograms. It completely replaces itself every 2 to 4 weeks. Right now, approximately 30 to 40,000 dead skin cells are falling off your body per hour. You shed your entire outer layer roughly once a month. The person you were last month is quite literally on the floor. Skin is not passive. It regulates temperature, produces vitamin D, houses millions of nerve endings, detects pressure and pain. It acts as a primary barrier between you and a world that would very much like to infect you. It does all of this while being repeatedly scratched, burned, bruised, and exposed to ultraviolet radiation for an entire lifetime. After death, the skin begins to change almost immediately. Blood pools to the lowest points of the body, a process called livor mortis, creating dark purplish patches within 1 to 2 hours. The skin loses its elasticity. Cells begin to rupture as the enzymes inside them are released. The barrier function collapses. What was keeping the outside world out has stopped caring. Here's what nobody mentions. Skin cells survive long after the organs shut down. Hair follicle cells and skin cells have been successfully cultured up to 2 weeks after death. Nail cells remain viable even longer. The boundary between alive and dead is not a clean line. Parts of you keep going. Parts of you take their time. Parts of you are, in a technical sense, still alive long after you have stopped being you. The microbiome. Your body contains approximately 38 trillion bacteria. You have more bacterial cells than human cells. Most of them live in your gut, a dense ancient ecosystem that has been co-evolving with humans for hundreds of thousands of years. Your microbiome helps train your immune system. It produces neurotransmitters that affect your mood. It communicates directly with your brain by the vagus nerve. You are, in the most literal biological sense, not a single organism. You are an ecosystem. When the immune system shuts down after death, those 38 trillion bacteria are suddenly unsupervised. They don't leave. They begin eating. The gut bacteria breach the intestinal wall within hours of death and spread systematically through the tissue, consuming the host from the inside. Decomposition is not the body falling apart. Decomposition is the body being eaten by the organisms that lived inside it. You are your own funeral feast. Here's the part nobody tells you. Scientists have discovered that the microbiome undergoes a predictable, clock-like progression after death, changing composition in such consistent patterns that it can be used to estimate time of death more accurately than almost any other biological marker. Your gut bacteria leave a timestamp. The organisms that lived with you in life are the ones documenting your death. There's something in that fact that is either deeply poetic or profoundly disgusting, possibly both. The cells. Cells are where death actually happens, not in the heart, not in the brain, not in any organ you can name, but in the 3 trillion individual units of life that make up every tissue, every system, every function your body has ever performed. Each one of them dies alone. Cells die in one of 2 ways. Apoptosis is the organized kind, The cell receives a signal, dismantles itself in an orderly sequence, packages its contents for recycling, and disappears without causing inflammation. It is, in biological terms, a dignified death. Necrosis is the other kind. The cell runs out of energy, swells, ruptures, and spills its contents into surrounding tissue, triggering an inflammatory cascade that damages neighbors. Necrosis spreads. Apoptosis contains. The body spends enormous resources trying to ensure that when cells die, they die the right way. After systemic death, that control is gone. Necrosis propagates unchecked. Cells rupture in sequence. Enzymes digest tissue from the inside. The process is called autolysis, self-digestion. You are dissolved by your own chemistry. The body in its final act consumes itself. Here's what nobody mentions. Some cells don't get the message. White blood cells, neutrophils, have been found actively moving through tissue up to 12 hours after death. They have no signal telling them to stop. They patrol. They circulate. They do their job in a body that no longer has any use for them. The immune system, designed to protect life, is one of the last things to accept that life is over. Consciousness. Nobody knows exactly what consciousness is. That's not a philosophical caveat. That is the current state of neuroscience. The hard problem of consciousness, why subjective experience exists at all, remains unsolved. We know which neurons fire. We don't know why any of it feels like something. And that gap is exactly where death becomes genuinely strange. At the moment of clinical death, something measurable happens that has no agreed-upon explanation. The brain, oxygen-deprived, shutting down, chemically chaotic, produces its most organized, most coherent electrical activity on record. Gamma wave surge. Neural networks that don't normally communicate begin firing in synchrony. Patients resuscitated from cardiac arrest report vivid, structured experiences. Light, review of memory, a sense of presence, at the exact moment their brain should be producing nothing. 40 to 20% of cardiac arrest survivors report some form of near-death experience. That is not a small number. That is tens of millions of people describing something that, according to the materialist model of consciousness, should not be possible. Here's the part nobody tells you. Consciousness may not end at the moment most people think it does. Studies in terminal patients show organized brain activity for up to 30 minutes after all vital signs have ceased. The boundary between life and death is not a wall. It is a gradient. And on the other side of that gradient, something is still running, something the science can measure but cannot yet explain. The last thing to go may be the only thing that ever mattered, and we don't know what it is. Death is not one event. It is a sequence, a cascade, a process that takes longer, goes deeper, and behaves stranger than anyone who hasn't studied it would expect. The heart stops, the brain burns bright, then goes dark. The lungs hold their last breath. The liver keeps working. The skin keeps living. The bacteria take over. The cells dissolve themselves. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, consciousness does something that nobody can explain. You'll go through every single one of these stages. So will everyone you have ever loved. The only question worth asking isn't when. It's whether knowing changes anything. It should. Most of the time, it doesn't. That's the most human thing of all.